My 7-year-old son's trembling voice shattered the silence that night. "Mom, I'm scared. Dad's planning to take me away from you." Those words hit me harder than any alarm ever could. As I held him close, I had no idea that his whispered warning would uncover a betrayal so calculated, so cruel, that it would nearly cost me everything: my home, my freedom, and my son. But what my husband didn't know was that I was about to turn his own trap against him. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. My name is Victoria Brennan. I'm 39 years old and I work as a senior financial analyst for a tech startup in Seattle, Washington. My life, from the outside, looked completely under control. My house on Mercer Island was modern and comfortable, with large windows overlooking the water and soft aromas that always felt like home. I had a demanding but well-paying job that allowed me to spend significant time with my son, Ethan. That Tuesday night, I had just finished reviewing a report for a critical meeting in San Francisco. My flight was scheduled for Wednesday morning at 7:15. I was packing business clothes in my walk-in closet while Ethan, my 7-year-old, played with his Lego set on the bedroom rug. He was a sweet, sensitive boy whose intelligence often astonished even his teachers at Mercer Island Elementary. I folded a crisp white blouse and called out to him from the closet. "Remember, you're staying with your dad on Wednesday, okay?" "Yeah, just for 2 nights," he said quietly. Ethan didn't answer right away. He simply fitted a Lego piece into place in silence. I noticed his strange quietness, but I figured he was just concentrating. After all, sometimes kids didn't like their moms to leave. Later that night, already in his pajamas, Ethan asked me to stay with him a little longer before sleep. He lay down next to me, resting his head on my chest, and remained quiet for several minutes. Then he said something that sliced the night in two. "Mom," he whispered without looking up, "I'm scared. Dad's planning to take me away from you." I froze. I thought I hadn't heard him correctly. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "Dad has a girlfriend. He talked to her on the phone last night when he thought I was asleep. He was in the den. He told her that when you leave on your trip, they're going to the bank and they're going to do something with the money." I felt a cold dread wash down my back. I swallowed hard. "What exactly did you hear, Ethan?" "He told that lady that you'd be away, and they had 3 days to get everything done. She laughed and said they'd finally be able to breathe easy." I hugged my son without saying a word. I could hear my heart hammering in my chest, an urgent warning. Ethan fell asleep quickly, but I didn't close my eyes that night. At 3 a.m, I got up and went downstairs to the kitchen to make coffee. I turned on the soft light in the dining room and opened my laptop. I searched through my emails for a file I had received a couple of weeks earlier. It was a scan of some documents David, my husband, had asked me to sign right after my appendectomy. He had said they were just to update our insurance policies. I found it. 5 pages, small print, confusing legal terms. But one heading immediately caught my attention. General power of attorney with broad authority. My stomach clenched. Click. I opened another document. Authorization for administration of assets and property in the event of medical contingency. My hands trembled. I remembered the afternoon I signed those papers. I still had the stitches from the operation. The morphine was still in my system. David had been loving, attentive. He served me herbal tea, brought the papers over, and said, "It's just a formality, just in case. I want to be able to help you if anything ever happens." Now, those words carried a terrifying double meaning. I closed the laptop. I paced the kitchen floor like a prisoner searching for a way out. My husband, the man who swore eternal love, was plotting against me with another woman, and my son had been the accidental witness. At 4:30 in the morning, I checked my suitcase. Everything was packed, but now the idea of leaving the city filled me with panic. Instead of sleeping, I opened my work notepad and began writing a list of questions. How long have they been together? Who is she? Why does he want to take my money? How serious is what I signed? Am I in legal danger? At dawn, David woke up as if nothing were wrong. He kissed me on the forehead and brewed coffee. "Did you pack everything?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, observing his every gesture, every word, as if he were a stranger. "What time are you leaving Wednesday?" "My flight is at 7:15 in the morning. I have to leave the house around 5. David nodded. Then, without a hint of subtlety, he asked, "Are you coming back Thursday or Friday?" I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I took a deep breath and said, "Make it Friday evening." "Perfect." And he smiled. That smile was the confirmation. While Ethan ate breakfast, I watched him with a mixture of tenderness and rage, not against him, but against myself. I had ignored the signs, small absences, ridiculous excuses. David had spent more time in meetings at Pioneer Square, started taking calls on the patio, and changed his cell phone passwords. But I never imagined anything this low. In the afternoon, while David was at the grocery store, I called Claire Patterson, a former university colleague who was now an attorney. I requested an urgent meeting. At 7 sharp that evening, I entered Claire's office in a discreet downtown Seattle building. "Do you have the documents you signed?" she asked. I opened my bag and pulled out a folder with the printouts. Claire read them in silence for several minutes. "Victoria, this is serious." "What does it mean?" "You gave him full access. Your husband can make legal, financial, and medical decisions on your behalf. If he claims you are not mentally fit to manage your assets, he can act for you. He can even sell your house." I felt sick. "And he can do it without me here?" "Yes, and if he's already planned it, this trip you're taking is the perfect window. He won't waste time. He'll move everything while you're out of state." "I have to revoke this, Claire." "I can help you, but we need to proceed with discretion. Are you willing to cancel your trip?" "Of course I am." "Okay, we're going to do 2 things. First, legally revoke the power of attorney. Second, notify the bank and restrict any unauthorized movements on your accounts. But we need proof of his intentions. Do you have a recording, a message, anything that involves him?" I shook my head. My son overheard him. He told the woman they were going to use my absence to handle everything at the bank. "Then we have to be smart. We'll prepare the revocation and seal all the avenues before he acts." I left the firm with a plan, but my hands were still shaking. The next morning, I woke up at 6. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands clasped, cold coffee in a mug I hadn't touched. I listened to the wall clock ticking like a countdown. My gaze was fixed, immobile, as if my mind were trapped in a thought I couldn't escape. Ethan was still asleep. David was, too. It wasn't time for him to wake up for work yet. I knew I couldn't show a single crack. If he suspected anything, the plan I was assembling with Claire could fall apart. Any mistake could cost me not only my money, but also my son. I got up and walked to the front door. I picked up the newspaper and, opening the mailbox, saw a white envelope among the correspondence. It had no visible return address, but the seal in one corner gave it away. Attorney Marcus Chen, Seattle, Washington. My stomach lurched. I walked into the house as if holding a bomb. I carefully opened the envelope and extracted a copy of a notarial deed. In the bottom right corner, 2 names were signed as authorized witnesses: David Brennan and Rachel Hartley. That name was a knife that cut away any hope that this was a misunderstanding. The document, dated weeks earlier, confirmed the validation of the power of attorney. Rachel was not just the mistress. She was the woman who had helped my husband legalize a weapon against me. I slowly lowered the paper. I rested it on the table as if it weighed tons. My phone vibrated. A message from Claire. "I've contacted the specialist. He has an opening this afternoon. Get ready to act." I looked up. My eyes no longer held fear. They held fury. At 8 in the morning, when David came down for breakfast, I was ready, dressed in office wear, my laptop in my backpack, and a serene smile on my face. David watched me carefully as if measuring every detail. "Do you have a meeting today?" he asked gently. "Yeah, with the San Francisco team. Getting everything ready for the trip." "And what time do you fly on Wednesday?" he insisted, slowly stirring his coffee. "7:15 in the morning. I have to leave the house around 5. David took a sip and nodded. He didn't look at me directly, but I noticed the slight movement of his lips, a minimal, almost imperceptible smirk. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You've been so stressed lately, Vic. Are you sure you're okay? Maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist." I held his gaze. I didn't look away. I wanted him to believe I trusted him, even though every cell in my body screamed the opposite. "I'll let you know if I need help," I replied, bringing the mug to my lips. When David left for work, I locked the door. Then I sank against the wall. I took a deep breath. I forced myself not to cry. This day was not for tears. It was for strategy. At 11:30, I arrived at the firm Claire had indicated. I was greeted by a man about 50 years old with graying hair and a severe face. His name was Marcus Chen, an attorney specializing in family estates and domestic fraud prevention. "I've reviewed the case," he said. "Your situation is more common than you think, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous." I sat opposite him, still holding the notary envelope. "How bad is it?" Marcus took the documents, read them, and looked up. "Your husband has total control over your assets. He can sell your house, move your accounts, even sign medical decisions for you. Legally, he holds your entire life in his hands. I felt an empty pit in my stomach. And he can declare me incapacitated? Yes. In the event of mental or physical illness, with a doctor's certificate and the current power of attorney, he can request a declaration of incapacity. And if you're out of state, it's even easier to execute the process without immediate opposition." I clenched my fists on the table. "Can they commit me to a clinic?" "Yes, and he wouldn't need your consent. A doctor's order and his signature as the authorized agent would be enough." Marcus paused. He leaned forward. "I need to be honest with you, Victoria. In cases like this, judges often favor the husband, especially if he presents as stable and you're portrayed as emotional. They'll try to paint you as unstable, overworked, neglectful. They'll use your success against you." I swallowed hard. "So what can I do?" "We need to be smarter, more strategic. We need irrefutable evidence." He shared something personal then. "My mother went through something similar when I was young. That's why I became a lawyer. I want to make sure other women have the tools to fight back." After dropping Ethan off at Mercer Island Elementary the next morning, I sat in the driver's seat and took out my phone. I opened the browser and typed Rachel Hartley. Scattered results appeared. A LinkedIn profile, some notarial records, and a mention on the website of a financial consulting firm, Hartley Financial Advisors. I clicked on each link as if diffusing explosive minds. On the consulting firm's website, I found a photograph of Rachel in a tailored suit, an impeccable smile, and a marked arrogance in her eyes. The description read, "Founding partner, specialist in personal wealth, asset management, and family fund restructuring." I swallowed, looking again at the address. Pioneer Square, 2nd floor, Seattle. Then I remembered. David used to say he had meetings at clients' offices in that very area. He had even taken Ethan there once, he told me. I had thought it was a bank. Now I understood everything. Rachel wasn't new to David's life. She wasn't just a consultant. Something inside me told me that face wasn't entirely unfamiliar. I went back online, this time to Facebook, and searched the full name. There was a private account with no visible posts, only a profile picture. Rachel with her back turned, facing a large window with a view of the city, the kind of image that doesn't show but hints. I decided to go further back. I searched for old photos on my own computer, forgotten digital albums, events, gatherings, wedding photos, honeymoon pictures, nothing. Until I found a folder David had sent me once, labeled college. I opened it, and there she was. Rachel, much younger with longer hair, sitting next to David at a college party. In another photo, they were hugging. In one more, they were kissing. The photos were dated 2003. Rachel wasn't just a mistress. She was his former girlfriend, the woman David had loved before he met me, and now She had returned. I sat alone in the dining room, the laptop in front of me, staring at the screen as if it were a recorded betrayal. I felt a mixture of fury, fear, helplessness, and something more dangerous, a thirst for justice. Hours later, Ethan came home from school. He was happy with new drawings in his backpack. I tried to act naturally while serving him a snack. "Mom, can I tell you something? But promise me you won't get mad." "Of course, sweetheart, tell me." Ethan played with his glass of milk. "Dad told me something. That when you go on your trip, he's going to take me to live with him and Rachel. That we're going to get a puppy. That she bakes cookies. And that there's a big room just for me there." I felt my fingers go cold. "He told you that?" Ethan nodded. "And he said you work too much. That you don't have time for me anymore. That he's going to take better care of me. But I want to live with you, Mom. You're not going away, right?" I hugged my son and kissed him on the head. "No, baby, I'm not going away. Don't worry. Nobody is going to separate you from me." Ethan didn't understand the gravity of my words, but I did. That was the complete plan, not only to take my assets, but also to erase my presence from my son's life. Later that evening, after I put Ethan to bed, he asked me something that broke my heart. "Mom, is it my fault? Did I break our family?" I knelt down and looked into his eyes. "No, baby, you didn't break anything. You saved us. You're the bravest person I know." He hugged me tight, and I felt his small body trembling. At 9 that night, David arrived home. He looked rushed, nervous. He brought a bag of pastries and a bottle of craft beer. He tried to act affectionate. He spoke to me as if we were dating again. "You look beautiful tonight," he said while I was doing the dishes. "Thanks," I replied without looking at him. "I was thinking," he added, "what if after your trip, we plan a little getaway? Just you and me, maybe the San Juan Islands. No work, no kid, just us." I managed a slight smile. Why so romantic all of a sudden? David looked at me with that forced smile he could no longer sustain. "Because I love you, Victoria, and sometimes I feel like we're drifting apart." Just then, David's phone vibrated. It was on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up. I managed to read a name before he grabbed it. Rachel. David immediately locked it. "Who was that?" I asked, as if I hadn't seen anything. "A client from the office." I looked at him in silence. I let it go. It wasn't the time to confront him. That night, while I was packing and pretending to prepare for the trip, I found a card hidden among David's documents in his desk drawer. It was for a private psychiatric clinic, Emerald City Wellness Center. On the back, handwritten, was a date. Wednesday the 10th, 9 in the morning, and a name, Dr. Kesha Grant. I felt the world move beneath my feet. That was their plan. I would leave on Wednesday, and on Wednesday morning, David would have me declared unstable by a complicit psychiatrist. By Friday, I likely wouldn't have a house, accounts, or a son. I looked at Ethan, who was sleeping with his stuffed bear hugged in his arms. I sat next to him and stroked his hair. For a moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I locked myself in the bathroom, sat down on the floor, and wrapped my arms around my knees. My hands were shaking. In my head, a voice kept repeating, "What if I lose? What if they take him?" Then I looked up and saw a drawing Ethan had made, taped to the bathroom mirror. It was our family, me, him, and David holding hands under a bright sun. He had drawn it months ago, back when I still believed we were happy. I wiped my tears. I stood up. No, I won't let that happen. When David went into the shower that night, I took his phone. I locked myself in the guest bathroom and dialed Claire's number. I spoke in a low tone. "Claire, we have what we need. He doesn't just want to rob me. He wants to keep my son. And Rachel is part of everything. She was his girlfriend in college. They've been together for years." "Do you have any more direct proof?" Claire asked. "No, but I can get it." "Then do it. Record what you can. Conversations, messages, anything." That same night, I activated the voice recorder on my phone. Marcus had already instructed me about Washington's two-party consent laws. In this state, only one party needs to consent to record a conversation they're part of. That meant I could legally record any call I was involved in. I left the phone running in the living room while I pretended to be asleep on the couch. At 11:07, David made a call on speakerphone. "Hey, beautiful," he said in a low voice. "Is she asleep?" Rachel asked from the other end. "Yeah, and she doesn't suspect a thing. Everything's ready. In 48 hours, it'll all be ours." "Are you sure the attorney will accept the transfer?" "Sure. He thinks it's for a family restructuring. She already signed the authorization when she had the surgery. She didn't even notice. And the house too, but we did it through the real estate firm. My brother-in-law already received the down payment. We just need to sign the deed." "Perfect. And the appointment with Dr. Grant?" "Wednesday morning at 9. By Friday, she'll be committed, and we'll have full custody. Ethan will finally have a stable home. I want to see you tomorrow. I have something to show you." "What is it?" "I'll show you in person, but I'll give you a hint. It's red lace." I held my breath. I knew I had to save every second of that conversation. The recorder kept running until they hung up. The next day, I took the recording to Marcus. The attorney listened intently, noting dates and names. "Good," he said when it was over. "We now have proof of premeditation and an asset transfer in progress. He mentioned a real estate firm. Yes, and that his brother-in-law already received the down payment. I'm going to investigate the corporate name." Marcus taught me something important that day. "Victoria, David is playing checkers. Move fast, grab what you can. We're playing chess. Think 3 moves ahead. He thinks you're going on the trip. Let him think that. Let him make his move. Then we capture the king." That afternoon, Marcus called me from his office. "I found it. The real estate firm is called Pacific Northwest Realty Group. It's registered in the name of Brandon Hartley, Rachel's brother." I felt the floor drop out from under me. They're selling my house to a shell company created by his mistress's family? Yes, but if we act now, we can stop it. We need to file an injunction and an urgent request for property review due to vitiated consent. Today. Do it. Marcus already had everything prepared. That night, I came home and pretended to reserve a ride to SeaTac Airport. I left an empty suitcase at the bottom of the stairs and hugged Ethan tightly before putting him to bed. I didn't say goodbye. I just whispered in his ear, "Tomorrow, everything is going to be all right." But before that, I had dinner with David and Ethan as if nothing had happened. David was more attentive than usual. He told jokes at the table. He offered to pack some things for the trip. He gently stroked my hair. I let him. Every caress was a disguise. Every smile was a weapon. We had a nightly ritual, Ethan and I. Every evening before bed, we'd share 3 good things that happened during the day. But that night, when I asked him, Ethan couldn't think of anything. He just stared at his hands and said nothing. That's when I knew. My son was carrying a weight no 7-year-old should have to bear. "Do you remember those papers you signed weeks ago?" David asked after dinner. "The attorney called me. He said there are a few details to update. Can you stop by his office tomorrow?" I felt a shiver. I got up with the excuse of doing the dishes. "I can't tomorrow. I have a full day. Better after the trip." "But the attorney said it's quick. Just 1 signature. Just go." "I prefer to do it calmly when I get back." There was a tense silence. David set his silverware down on the table, harder than necessary. "Whatever you want." I turned to hide my face, closed my eyes, and clenched my teeth. I knew I had thwarted his plan, and I also knew that he would start to panic now. The next morning, I executed the plan with Marcus. I signed the revocation of the power of attorney, changed my accounts, and transferred all my savings to an exclusive secure account at First Seattle Bank. I even protected Ethan's educational fund that David had helped create. When I finished, Marcus looked at me seriously. "As of today, he no longer has control over you, but he doesn't know it yet, and when he finds out, he won't react well. I looked out the window. Outside, the city went about its routine, but inside me, everything was war. What if he tries something with Ethan? What if he wants to take him away? He can't. Legally, custody is shared. But if what you told me is true, I think he and Rachel have something else in mind. I turned to him. What? Marcus observed me gravely. What if their plan is to make you look unstable so he can claim full custody? I didn't reply. The words hung in the air like poison. I opened my eyes before the alarm went off. It was 4:12 in the morning. The darkness in the room was absolute, but inside me, there was a clarity I hadn't known before. The certainty that I was about to change everything. I got up in silence, dressed in the same jeans and shirt I had laid out the night before, took the empty suitcase I had placed at the bottom of the stairs, and went down without making a sound. David slept in the adjacent room, as if he expected to celebrate a quiet victory the next day. He believed everything would happen according to his plan. Me out of state, the house ready to be transferred, the accounts about to be emptied, the son lined up to be taken with him, and a new life with Rachel as the final flourish. But all of that was a carefully constructed lie. I put the suitcase in the trunk of my car, started the engine, set the GPS to SeaTac Airport, and left the neighborhood without looking back. About 4 blocks away, I stopped the car, turned off the lights, and parked in a small, discreet garage that Marcus had arranged for me in the Capitol Hill area. It was a property the lawyer used for delicate cases like mine. There, inside a small house that functioned as a legal monitoring center, Marcus was waiting for me. "Everything good?" he asked, opening the door. "I didn't sleep, but I'm ready," I replied as I entered. The place had a desk with 2 open laptops, a functioning coffee maker, and a central monitor connected to surveillance cameras. Marcus offered me a cup of coffee, but I barely touched it. All my attention was on the screens. "Are you clear on what we're going to do?" he asked. I nodded. "We're going to wait for him to act." "Exactly. Your accounts are already blocked. The power of attorney is revoked. The bank has been notified. Everything is legally shielded. Now the important thing is for him to expose himself." At 8:03 in the morning, David sent the first text message. "Sweetheart, did you board yet? Everything okay?" I ignored him. At 8:47, another one arrived. "Let me know when you land. I want to know you're safe." Marcus noted the time. Each message would be part of the legal timeline we would build later. At 9:10, one of the cameras connected to the First Seattle Bank branch captured movement. David entered the main door in a navy blue suit, a black folder under his arm, and an expression of confidence on his face. Rachel was waiting for him outside in a white car parked illegally, checking her phone. "There he is," I muttered, not taking my eyes off the screen. "Let's see how long it takes for him to drop the mask," Marcus said, activating the recording. David approached the executive service area, showed his identification, and handed over the documents. The camera focused from a discreet angle. The conversation was partially audible through the ambient microphone the bank had authorized for legal cases. "As the legal agent for Miss Victoria Brennan, I want to liquidate the funds in account number..." The executive, a woman in her 40s, checked her computer. Her face changed. She cautiously looked up. "One moment, please." She called her superior. A tall man with glasses appeared behind the glass, reviewed the papers, then gave a dry nod, picked up the phone and dialed an extension. David frowned, crossing his arms. "Is there a problem?" he asked in a tense voice. "We are just verifying the information," the manager replied. Rachel got out of the car and approached the door, looking in nervously. She paced back and forth while checking her watch. On the camera, we heard David murmur under his breath. "This was supposed to be done today. My wife is out of state." I felt my heart rate accelerate. Hearing those words from his mouth was like having a written confirmation. The manager returned with the folder in hand. "Mr. Brennan, I must inform you that the power of attorney was revoked less than 24 hours ago. Furthermore, your access as a co-signer has been removed. You are no longer authorized to make any movements in these accounts." David paled. "That's impossible." I repeat, sir, you do not have legal authorization and the documents you presented are invalid. This is crazy. She signed this. I'm her husband. The system has been updated. The information allows no exceptions. David raised his voice and slammed the table. You don't know who you're dealing with. The executive immediately stood up. The manager pressed a button under the desk. Security approached down the hallway. Rachel entered the bank just then. What's going on? She said loudly, approaching David. They're denying us access. They say she revoked everything, he replied beside himself. But didn't you say it was done? She signed it. She signed it while she was recovering. And how could she annul it so fast? Who helped her? I don't know, but this had to be done today. I listened to every word from the laptop. Marcus recorded everything in real time. Everything we needed for a lawsuit for attempted fraud was there. Audio, video, dates, revoked documents. David and Rachel exposed in their desperation. On the screen, the manager gestured with his hand. David was escorted toward the exit. Rachel left before him, talking on the phone, agitated. Marcus paused the recording. That was perfect. I brought my hands to my face. I didn't cry, but the emotional weight was crushing. Seeing him, hearing him, knowing that he had truly tried to execute everything hurt more than any imagined betrayal. At 6 that evening, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I looked at Marcus, who was with me in the kitchen reviewing the digital file of the complaint we would file the next day. Answer it, the lawyer said. I have the application recording in the background. Just stay calm. Don't give in to his tone. Don't show anger. Just listen and respond. We need him to talk enough to incriminate himself. I nodded and slid my finger across the screen. Hello? From the other side, David's voice came out loaded with a barely concealed tension. Where are you? That doesn't matter, I replied serenely. There was a pause. Then his tone changed. He went from aggressive to supposedly hurt, as if he still thought he could appeal to my soft side. I need us to talk, you and me. What happened this morning was crazy. We misunderstood each other. You're acting like I'm a criminal. I remained silent for a few seconds. And aren't you? Of course not. What are you saying? You know me. I'm your son's father. I'm your husband. The father of my son who tried to empty my accounts while pretending to be worried about my flight? The husband who signed documents behind my back with his mistress? That one? He sighed heavily. You're exaggerating. It wasn't like that. You have no idea how you've made me feel, like an intruder, a thief. Then what was it, David? He paused. We just wanted what's also ours, Rachel and I. I looked up at Marcus, who was nodding as he took notes. Everything was going as we expected. You're including that woman as part of our family now. She's been with me longer than you know, and you never gave us enough, always working, always in your world. And I? And everything I brought to the table? You brought a plan to get rid of me. No, that's not true. Were you not planning to commit me with the help of a psychiatrist? Didn't you have an appointment already scheduled to declare that I was emotionally unstable? David was silent. And the house? Were you not planning to transfer it to a company that turned out to be in the name of your mistress's brother? It's not what you think. And what is it then? A coincidence. Then he said something that revealed everything. Every time someone asked, "What do you do?" I had to say I work in sales and watch their eyes glaze over. Then they'd turn to you. And you? Oh, I'm a senior financial analyst. And suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to you. I was invisible. Your success made me disappear. I felt a surge of anger. My success didn't make you invisible, David. Your insecurity did. You could have been proud. You could have supported me. Instead, you chose to destroy me. It's justice, Victoria. Justice for everything you took from me all these years. Just then, Ethan appeared at the dining room doorway. He listened intently, not understanding everything, but understanding enough. "Mom," he said in a shaky voice, Are you talking to Dad? I looked at him and gently signaled for him to come closer. I took his hand and sat him next to me. Yes, I am talking to him. Ethan stayed quiet, but tears started to run down his cheeks. Is he going to take me from you? Never, I replied in a low voice. He will never take you from my side. On the phone, David heard everything. Is he there? Are you using our son for this? I am protecting him, I replied calmly. The way you didn't. David let out a huff. You're sick. You need help and you need a lawyer. He hung up. Marcus stopped the recording. That was pure gold. He incriminated himself 3 times. Attempted fraud, breach of trust, and complicity with third parties. We'll take this to the district attorney's office tomorrow. The case is no longer just civil. Now it enters the criminal realm. I hugged Ethan tightly. He hid his face in my chest, sobbing quietly. I stroked his back, whispering words I could barely pronounce because the knot in my throat was too large. The next morning, Marcus and I filed the complaint with the King County Family and Estate Fraud Unit. We attached the recording, the revoked documents, screenshots of the notary appointments, the attempted bank movement, and Rachel Hartley's background. And then came the surprise. Detective Sarah Kim, one of the investigators, checked Rachel's file and found a previous complaint of workplace fraud for signature falsification at her former consulting firm. She'd been fired for altering a contract without client consent in a case that never reached trial but was settled with an out-of-court agreement. Marcus rubbed his hands together. That gives us the perfect angle. If she was caught falsifying before and now attempted it again with you, we can use her history as a pattern of behavior, and that makes this more than an attempt, it's recidivism. The district attorney's office accepted the formal complaint. The house could not be transferred. The accounts were protected. And most importantly, an investigation was initiated for attempted estate fraud, falsification of documents, and emotional abuse toward a minor. The King County Superior Court building stood like a concrete tower amidst busy Seattle avenues and anonymous faces. I watched it from the car while Marcus reviewed the documents one last time. His leather briefcase rested on his lap, and inside every page was an open wound. Proofs, captures, recordings, testimonies, everything needed for the system to stop pretending that justice was optional. Are you ready? Marcus asked without looking at me. No one is ready for this, I replied in a steady voice, but we're doing it anyway. We entered the main door at 8:02 in the morning. The air smelled of paper, reheated coffee, and contained nerves. Marcus greeted an officer he had spoken to the afternoon before. I handed over my identification, signed the forms, and was led to a small waiting room with white walls and a discreet camera in the corner. At 8:17, David arrived. He was dressed in black without a tie. Rachel was by his side, wearing dark sunglasses and a gray blazer that failed to hide the tension on her face. David avoided looking at me, but Rachel didn't. She watched me with a mixture of hatred, contempt, and fear, because she knew everything was about to come out. The judge presiding over the preliminary hearing was a man with white hair, thick eyebrows, and a measured voice. His tone conveyed authority effortlessly, the kind of judge who had seen more betrayals than weddings in his life. He took his seat, reviewed the files, and asked the plaintiff's side to begin. Marcus stood up. I took a deep breath. Your Honor, my client was the victim of a series of premeditated acts by her husband and Miss Rachel Hartley with the aim of stripping her of her estate, nullifying her legal capacity, and taking custody of her minor son. We attach documentary evidence, audio, video recordings, and testimonies. Furthermore, we present evidence that the defendants attempted to use a power of attorney obtained through deception, signed during a medical recovery period following major surgery. The judge reviewed the papers, pausing at the seals, dates, and signatures. He made some notes. Then he turned to David. Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to declare? David stood up. His voice trembled at first, but then he found a firm, almost indignant tone. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. My wife is going through an emotional crisis. She has a history of severe anxiety. She's been under constant pressure for years. I was only trying to protect her. She signed the documents in full awareness. What we did was for the good of the family. There was no deception and no intent to harm her. I let out a dry laugh. I couldn't contain it. The judge looked up. "Miss Brennan, do you wish to say something?" I stood up unhurriedly. My charcoal gray blazer made me look formidable, resolute. My voice didn't tremble once. "You use my medical recovery as an opportunity. That doesn't make you smart. It makes you a coward. I signed those papers with morphine in my system. You told me it was an insurance update. You never gave me a choice. And while I slept on the couch, you plotted with your mistress how to take my house, my accounts, and my son. I have everything recorded. Rachel saying, 'In 48 hours, it'll be ours.' You yelling at the bank that my wife is out of state. It's all here, and it all has a date, time, and context." David looked down. Rachel crossed her arms tightly. "Furthermore," I continued, "my son spoke up. Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, his teacher, reported that he was scared. That his dad had told him that when I left, he would go live with Rachel. That they would get a puppy, as if that were enough to erase his mother." The judge requested silence with a slight hand motion. Then he requested that the audio and videos be presented. The recording at the bank. The phone call. The intercepted conversation between David and Rachel. Every word filled the room like a verdict. No one spoke. No one breathed. When they finished, the judge leaned back in his seat. After listening to the evidence and given the clear indications of document falsification, intent to defraud, and emotional manipulation toward a minor, I proceed to issue the following precautionary measures. A restraining order against Mr. David Brennan and Miss Rachel Hartley in favor of Miss Victoria Brennan and her minor son. Furthermore, the freezing of any attempted asset transfer is ordered until the main case is resolved. David literally crumbled. He slumped into his chair as if all the air had evaporated from his lungs. Rachel grabbed her purse and left the room without looking back. When I left the building with Marcus, I breathed the cleanest air I had felt in months. It was as if the weight had stopped hanging from my chest. At the house, Ethan was waiting with a drawing. "You're my superhero," it said, with a stick figure wearing a red cape. I smiled, hugged him, and for the first time in a long time, I did it without fear. But that wasn't the end. We still had to finalize everything. After I got Ethan into the car, we sat there for a few minutes in silence. Then he asked, "Is it over, Mom?" I looked at him, and tears I'd been holding back finally came. "Yes, baby, we're safe now." He hugged me tight. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything in this world." We sat there holding each other, crying, not from sadness, but from relief. That same week, Marcus received a call from the district attorney's office. David and Rachel were willing to accept formal responsibility to avoid jail time. The deal consisted of 3 years of probation, full restitution for any failed financial movements, loss of rights over any shared assets, criminal records for attempted fraud and document falsification, and voluntary relinquishment of shared custody. "What do you think?" Marcus asked. "I want him to be marked. I want the world to know who he is. But more than anything, I want peace. I want my son to grow up without having to see that reflection in his eyes." Then we accept. Time doesn't erase, but it transforms. What was once a field of emotional warfare was now a peaceful home. 5 years later, I sold the house on Mercer Island. I didn't want to keep living in the same spaces where David had plotted my ruin. I moved to a smaller but brighter home in Queen Anne, with a garden and an open kitchen that became the center of my new life. I worked independently now. I left the consulting firm and created my own advisory project for women in situations of legal vulnerability. I organized free workshops called Protecting Your Assets, a guide for women. One woman told me, "You saved my life. I was about to sign papers my husband gave me. Now I know to read first." That morning, Ethan, now 12 years old, left school with an envelope in his hand. He walked to the car with a smile he couldn't hide. "Mom, they gave me this." I took the envelope and opened it carefully. The logo of the Northwest Scholars Program was printed on the header. I read the letter twice, then looked at him. My heart was racing. They offered you the full scholarship. He nodded without speaking. I read his essay that evening. The title was The Day I Saved My Mom. He wrote about the night he told me, about the fear, about not knowing if he was doing the right thing. The ending said, "My mom taught me that truth is the bravest choice, and I want to use this scholarship to become a lawyer so I can help other kids protect their families." I cried when I read it. You already are my hero, and you'll be a hero to so many others. 2 weeks later, I found another envelope in the mailbox. The handwriting was unmistakable. David. I sat in the garden. The sky was clear. I opened the envelope without emotion. The letter was long. It said he had lost his job, that Rachel had left him, that his father Thomas no longer wanted anything to do with him, that he was living in a rental apartment, and that he regretted everything more each day. He wrote, "I see Ethan's face every night. I hear his voice asking, 'Is he going to take me from you?' I destroyed the only 2 people who ever truly loved me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know you were right, and I was a coward." I didn't just throw it away. I read it once. I saw "I'm sorry" more than 20 times, but I also saw, "I hope one day you can understand." He was still justifying himself. I folded the letter calmly, stood up, went into the house, tossed it into the fireplace, and watched the flames until not a trace remained. As I watched it burn, I whispered, "I understand. You chose yourself over us, and I choose us over you. Goodbye, David." That night, Ethan approached me while we were having dinner. "Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive Dad?" I thought for several seconds. Forgiveness is complicated, sweetheart. Some people think forgiving means you're strong. Others think not forgiving means you're holding grudges. I think I've let go of the anger. I don't wish him harm. But I also don't need to let him back into our lives. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean giving second chances to people who prove they'll hurt you again. It means I'm free. He's not in my head anymore. And that's enough. I remained seated after Ethan went to his room. I looked at the lamp lit over the table, the clock marking 10:47, the tablecloth I had sewn myself during the toughest nights. I allowed myself one tear, just one, and it wasn't out of sadness or even relief. It was a tear of closure, because there was nothing left to fix and nothing left to recover. The story had ended, and in my inner voice, as if someone were dictating to me from the depths of my soul, I knew that if I ever decided to share what I had lived through, I would start like this. Money doesn't measure love. It measures greed, and sometimes betrayal doesn't come from an enemy, but from the person sleeping next to you. But it is also true that the purest love can come from a 7-year-old son who, with a whisper, saves your life.